Hello everyone, this is Greg the Hedgehog 09, hopefully soon to be Lance the Fox 09, and I figured today I'd finally go and post a video up on this channel and show you all my Sonic collection. It's going to be a lot of stuff, so it's going to be a long one. I do apologize for how my room looks. It's partially storage for some of my parents' stuff, so I'm going to be able to do this best I can. So first, let's start off with comics. This is basically my entire Sonic the Hedgehog comic book collection, spawning both the Archie series and as well as IDW, including comics, special issues, and graphic novels. So first, let's start off with my physical comic book collection here. So the first one up in here is the 2015 Free Comic Book Day special, the Worlds Unite one. For the second Mega Man and Sonic crossover. It is a dual-sided cover where this side has Sonic and the other side has Mega Man, as each this was like two separate stories. Okay, let's just move some of this stuff out of the way here. So the next one I have is the last of the Archie Sonic Free Comic Book Day issues. The Sonic Sampler. This one was just a couple of things from a couple of issues that were going on at the time. So it's decent. Advertisement for Sonic Mega Drive on the back there. Next was the Tangle and Whisper preview that I picked up at a comic shop. This was one for the IDW Sonic series that's still ongoing. But now we get to the meat and potatoes of my collection, the main issues. Most of the ones on the top here are ones that I picked up on a lucky day at Goodwill one day, and the rest of the bottom will be my personal collection from collecting from when I was a teenager. So first one is issue 2 of the original Archie run of Archie Sonic, back when the early days when the comic was a lot more comedic, more based on Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog in tone, despite having the SatAM characters. Really nice cover here. Yeah, look at that price. $1.25. This was $1.25 back in '93. Can you imagine now? Okay, next up we're going way ahead with issue number 77. This was shortly after the Adventure era started coming in and the redesigns came in. It was after Robotnik came back. Decent. And, oh yes, I own this one. The infamous issue 134, aka the Slap Heard Round Mobius. I mean, the cover's nice. It's a nice little homage to the Spider-Man No More cover, but the story inside, not so good, and the fan fiction included with the fan fiction that is Mobius X years later is not as good either. Okay, then here's issue 135, the first part of the Tommy Turtle trilogy for this. Decent cover. Next is issue 136. Pretty sad cover, but I mean, it's Patrick Spazzy, so his artwork was always the shit. Issue 137, this is when Patrick Spazzianti's artwork started mimicking the official Sonic Team artwork, Yuji Yukawa style. He actually managed to pull it off. This one holds a lot of sentimental value for me. Issue 138, Return to Angel Island Part 1. This was the first Sonic the Hedgehog comic I ever picked up in my life when I was but a wee lad of 8. This alongside playing the Genesis version of Sonic 1, was my introduction to the character. So this issue holds a very big place in my heart. I was never able to get the rest of the story when I was growing up, but thankfully, this lot of comics I picked up did have the other parts, so I have part 2 of 4, issue 139, really nice cover here. Part 3, issue 140, again, another great cover. Again, Spazzianti's cart was always the shit. You always were going, mostly sometimes picking these up for the badass covers he would do. And then issue 141, the final part of this story arc, got some nice artwork of Sonic, along with Knuckles, Locke, Leander, Eggman in the background. Issue 142, a story about the original Freedom Fighters. This is actually a pretty cool cover because It was a collaboration cover between Patrick Spaziante and one of my favorite Sonic artists, Stephen Butler. As you can see here, it's Patrick's art in the foreground here with Steve's art in the background, so really cool. And then, oh yeah, it's got a Shrek thing for the ogre green Twinkies. Yeah. Then part 2, issue 143, again, another great Spaziante Stephen Butler cover. Okay, here we go. Issue 157. Fun fact, this story arc was one of the last things that Ken Penders ever worked on for the comic. So yeah, this was when his reign of terror was coming to an end and things started to fix itself. And this is kind of also when Spaziante's art style kind of went and changed again. I mean, it's decent. I mean, it's this really nice render of Shadow here, a very clear Shadow the Hedgehog render, just minus the gun in his hand. Then issue 158, this really cool cover of kind of like a Fight Night cover. That's actually kind of pretty cool. Issue 159, the final issue Ken Penders worked on story-wise, with a lot of metal overlords right there. And then, of course, issue 160, The Turn of the Tide, when Ian Flynn began his writing. In his early days was just a lot of cleaning up after Ken's mess. And there was also the 15th anniversary and the 65th anniversary of Archie at the time. So again, another great Spaziante cover. And then issue 161, the introduction of Scourge, or basically Evil Sonic with a new name and a new design entirely. So that's kind of cool. Then issue 162, Darkest Storm, part 1 of 3. This was an interconnecting cover. It's the only part of this story I have physically. Then we jump to issue 165, one of the issues after this event again, and yeah, it's nice. Issue 174, the issue where Antoine and Bunny got married. This was kind of a big deal, and this was also when other artists like Tracy Yardley were starting to do covers again, so that's cool. Then, of course, the monumental issue 200. Another great Spaziante cover. This was the part where Eggman went and lost his marbles for a while, and the Iron Dominion went and took over. And, okay, so we're getting into this. Did any of you guys know that Sonic X got a comic for a while? Because it did. I owned a few issues when I was younger, but I don't have them anymore. So getting these was actually kind of cool. So first, here's issue 5. This is a 2-part story where Eggman plans to use artificial Chow to terrorize the people so he can go and rule over it. And then, of course, here's issue 6, the second part of it. It's got a real funny part in here. Like one of them is right here where it's like they're talking about like this, and he goes like, Sonic's going like, it's hard to believe this is the king of anything. And then he goes like, it has to taste better than the box of Dominoes we had for lunch. I'll never get the door again, says Tails. That, and it's also got this little funny bit here of the artificial Chow basically just running around with chainsaws. Like, yeah, Comics Code Authority let that slide. That's pretty funny. Okay, here's issue 12. This is one that I picked up at another thrift store. It definitely looks like it was drawn on, but it's a decent issue. And then the last one that I have is issue 23 of the Sonic X of the one. These are all the ones that I picked up from the thrift store. The rest of this is going to be my personal collection, and it starts with, oh yeah, issue 220. I apologize for how bad the cover looks. I mean, I got jokes about the cover artwork all the time, but the reason it's kind of like scuffed in a few places is because I used to carry these comics around with me all the time in high school, so I could have a little something to read after I got my classwork done. I carried them around in a makeshift green folder that didn't hold them all the way in, so there's that. Here's issue 222, when Sally and Sonic's relationship was starting to kick back in again, unaware of that. Yeah, you see the countdown to Genesis there? We're going to get to that in a couple minutes. Well, a few seconds, I should say. Oh yeah, if you want to know the back cover here, it did have an advertisement for Kingdom Hearts Recoded. That was the latest Kingdom Hearts game at the time. I've played it. It's okay. Definitely kind of more for a one-time playthrough than you wait a while to play it again. Next is issue 224, the last part before Genesis started. Well, one of the last. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. The other milestone issue that I own, issue 225. This is the issue where everything went south for a while. You know, the infamous Sally got killed, is she dead or not kind of thing. I mean, this beautiful, full spread cover by Spaziante here, that's actually kind of pretty cool. And now we get to some of my personal favorite issues with some of my favorite covers. Sonic Genesis Part 1, issue 226. For this arc, it was kind of a bit of a throwback to the gold days, and so Patrick Spaziante actually went and did versions of the original Genesis cover art here. So, of course, this one is a callback to the Genesis artwork of the American box art for Sonic 1. Only except you can see that even though Sonic has his classic proportions, he's got the green eyes. Don't know if people complained about that. Next is issue 227. This one being a callback cover to the American Sonic 2 box art. Pretty cool. Really nice to see Tails in his classic proportions. Right here, part 3, a call cover to the Sonic 3 box art, standalone Sonic 3, I should say. And no, that's not Knuckles there. That is supposed to be Sally. I could see that. And then finally, one of my most favorite Spaziante covers, Genesis Part 4. This really awesome cover of Super Sonic looking badass. That is just so cool. I remember my dad picking this up for me and just reading it back to back. It was great. Here's issue 238. This was well after Sally got roboticized and Eggman was going around with his Death Egg 3.0, I think, or 2.0. So where he was going and causing some shit. Issue 245, the third part of the Endangered Species arc. This was basically after the Ken Penders lawsuit had happened, and so they were starting to go and having to find ways to write his characters out of the comic. This big one was basically getting rid of all the Echidna characters, except for Knuckles. I don't have the first two parts. I do have the fourth and final part, Endangered Species Part 4. This is a nice cover, and of course Sonic here. Looks like Knuckles is about to crack. Very nice. Issue 247. At all costs. This was the issue released for during the time the comic was celebrating its 20th anniversary, and also where a big crossover between Sonic and another certain blue character was taking place. And then, of course, I have issue number 251, the final part of the Mega Man and Sonic crossover, Worlds Collide. This didn't take place in just the Sonic comic. This was a big crossover that took place around both the mainline Sonic comic, the mainline Mega Man comic that Archie had at the time, and Sonic Universe. A great big crossover where Eggman and Wily teamed up to take out their respective characters, only for everything to go wrong for them in the end. And this was also when the entire reboot retcon of the Archie Sonic universe happened. But it had to be done. And then, last but not least, for my mainline run, I have Sonic the Hedgehog issue number 290, the final issue ever released. The third part of their Genesis of a Hero arc. This one very much is basically a Sonic CD adaptation. The first two parts were a Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 adaptation, respectively. We were supposed to get a Sonic 3 and Knuckles adaptation, but that sadly never happened as the comic was canceled soon after. And then here is the only Ken Penders comic that I own, Knuckles the Echidna issue 17. Yes, Knuckles got his own comic series after his miniseries actually did well. I only really picked this up for the Spaziante cover, because Ken's writing is shit. It is just straight up shit. And everybody will pretty much believe me on that one. And now we get into the universe stuff. I only have 5 issues myself. Part 1 of Treasure Team Tango, my all-time favorite Sonic Universe story arc. I really like the cover here, just everybody being girly and Sonic just going, bleh. Part 2, we got everybody here going and searching for one of the Soul Emeralds, not realizing it's just like in the middle of the tree there. This arc is one of my favorites because it's probably like the funniest I've ever seen Omega be. Ian Flynn's writing for Omega is amazing. It's just that good. And then part 3, another one of my favorite covers. Cream and Cheese just looking badass like it's fucking Terminator over here. And Shadow just giving a fucking face palm in the background. It's kind of cool. And then part 2, issue 34, and part 4, issue 36 of the Babylon Rising story arc. And then, of course, I actually have a couple issues of the Sonic Boom comic. Yes, Sonic Boom also had a comic book alongside the TV show, the games, and all the merchandise. It was short-lived, only 11 issues long, and 3 of them were given to the second Mega Man and Sonic crossover. But this issue was actually cool. It's basically a story where Knuckles just betrays everyone temporarily just to go and get back at them for calling him stupid. Here's issue 3, my personal favorite, where Amy's hammer goes missing after the events of the second issue and they're trying to find it. It's actually kind of pretty fun. And then the only other issue I have is issue 11, the final issue. This was just like a bunch of stories written by one of the actual writers from the Sonic Boom show. Issue 5 that I have in one of my Sonic Super Digest books was also written by I think the son of one of the head writers. So it was actually kind of cool going and seeing the writers of the show kind of go and bring their magic to the comic. It was actually kind of cool. Okay, so now we get into my very limited amount of IDW Sonic comics. My local comic shop was going on and off of selling these, so I only have a few. First is the Landmark issue, issue 1, the cover B version. It's the same story, just different cover art. So I got this from a friend who I sadly no longer am in contact with. So it's just kind of sad in that department. Next is issue 2. Yeah, so I should say the first 4 issues all have an interconnecting cover thing here. The first part, I think, was like Sonic with Tails. This cover is Sonic with Amy, because it was them interacting with each other. Next is issue 3, Sonic and Knuckles, just like Sonic looking sly here. Amazing cover work for these issues by Tyson Hess, by the way. He is awesome, I should say that. And then issue 4. So yeah, I got that one. A really nice cover with Sonic, Tangle, and Blaze. This one actually got made into a puzzle by IDW, by the way. Okay, next up is issue 7. So yeah, I kind of went a ways there. Really nice cover, really nice and thick. Issue 8. Here, a little adventure with Sonic and Silver that introduced Whisper into the comic. Very cool. Then issue 9. Where Metal Sonic became Metal Overlord again to try and take the Master Emerald when Eggman went missing. I'll get into that later. And then the other ones I have are specials. The first one is the Team Sonic Racing one-shot. This was basically just kind of like a short adaptation and everything. It was actually kind of pretty fun to read. And then the other one I have is the 30th Anniversary one-shot. Basically a just nice little story with classic Sonic and the gang for a little throwback story. And then the last one I have is the 30th Anniversary Free Comic Book Day special. One thing about the IDW ones is that they usually have like one original story. Well, this one is an original story about Amy going and making comics about Sonic's adventures. And then the rest of it is basically just a recap of what was going on in the mainline comic. So yeah, that's... Yeah, it was also the 20th anniversary of the Free Comic Book Day since it started in 2001. So yeah, we got those. So next are these. My Sonic Super Special magazines. These were Archie going and doing a big magazine back around the time of like 2011. So around 2011, 2012. So here's the first issue. All these comics, for at least the first few, had these these foil covers on them, which hence why it looks so bad. And I should say, Eggman does show up in Sonic's iris there. And here's the contents of this one, so I can show. It had issue 226, 160, 161, 199, and 200, plus a few things, including an interview with Ian Flynn. That's kind of cool. Next one is issue 2. This was the one that was basically covering most of the Sonic Adventure adaptation that Archie went and did at the time, minus a lot of the Ken Pender stuff in the background. Stuff there, and a tree interview with Tracy Yardley. And then the last one I have is issue 3. This one contained the milestone issue 25, alongside a little mini comic adaptation of Sonic 4 Episode 2 called Time for a Comeback. So that was actually nice. And then, finally, next up are my Sonic Super Digest. These came out shortly after the Ken Penders lawsuit. Well, started before, I think, around the Ken Penders lawsuit. I've got a few here. Okay, so first is issue number 7 of this. Oh yeah, these came out like a little while after the reboot of the comic, since there's the Sonic Comic Origins. These were short stories going and giving the new background details for the characters that were still around after the reboot happened. And then, of course, we have issue 8, really nice cover here of Sonic and the reboot design of Antoine. I was a little bit iffy on the redesigns of some of the characters, because, I mean, I did kind of like Antoine more in his military jacket, but it's okay. Then we have issue 9, the little decent one, special edition it says, pretty decent. We got issue 10 here. This was a little bit of a thing for the Sonic Boom comic, has the first issue in there. So I have the first issue to some capacity. Issue 11, this was a big one. Covered a lot of stuff, like the latter end of of them going into the underwater world, and also the beginning of the story with Sonic becoming a werehog again, only this time it was through him breathing dark Gaia smoke. Yeah, it was a little weird. Issue 12, this was just like having a couple of things for the first Mega Man crossover. Plus, I believe the comic origin for the new version of Snively. Him working for Gon, but still wanting power. Then, of course, issue 15, pretty good. And then, last but not least, issue 16. And that covers all of my physical Sonic the Hedgehog comic stuff. Now we go on to the graphic novels. I should say I only have one Archie Sonic graphic novel left. Most of the ones that I was getting were from library sales, so they fell apart pretty quickly. So I should get that one out of the way. The only Archie Sonic comic graphic novel that I have is Treasure Team Tango. Ironically enough, I picked this up when my family and I were out in Silverdale at the local Barnes & Noble at the mall on Valentine's Day of all days. It's my personal favorite Sonic story arc, so being able to get it and then having the fourth and final part of it was actually kind of cool. But now we got to go and get to the stuff you're probably looking at. So first, here's the first volume of the IDW Sonic comic, the original release, Volume 1 Fallout. They kind of went the same way as the Archie Sonic ones did, covering 4 issues at a time. Unless you're looking at the bigger ones, this covers issues 1 through 4. The next one, The Fate of Dr. Eggman, covers issues 5 through 8, and basically finding out what happened to Eggman after everything went down. Volume 3, Battle for Angel Island. This was when again Metal Sonic was taking over when Eggman got his friend back, thanks to this guy, worse Snively, Dr. Starline. Because then we have Volume 4, Infection, the beginning of the Metal Virus arc, my least favorite arc in this comic so far. I mean, okay, I will admit I'm not a big fan of when Sonic goes super dark and everything. It is just a little weird to me. Right, but okay, then we have Volume 5, Crisis City. When everything for the Metal Virus arc was really starting to go into high gear here. And this one also has the infamous issue where Shadow got infected, and oh boy, the fan base that day. I remember it fondly. And then the last Sonic graphic novel I have is Sonic the Hedgehog Bad Guys. This was the 4-issue mini arc focusing on Starline alongside the octopus guy, I can't remember what his name is, Rough and Tumble, And of course, everybody's favorite villain from Lost World, Zavok the Zeti. But yeah, that's my entire comic book collection for Sonic. It's a bit extensive, not as big as most other people's, but yeah, just hold on a sec, I gotta get this stuff put away, so